Right, I have not done this in a long time. I'm even trying to get used to looking at the camera on the phone at the moment. Anyways, welcome back to the Taste of Sport YouTube channel for the first time in probably what 3 years. I'm going to imagine the editor Luke can probably put it in. It's myself, JD, the one you have seen before. Going to start off, kind of return to this year with since it's playoff time, and obviously my Patriots aren't in the playoffs, which is a fun experience for all of us in New England fans. Kind of look back, not even look back at this year, but a kind of quick way of looking at it is I have wrote down 5 likes and I'm 5 dislikes. You'd be surprised how, I guess I would say I'm more positive about this year than a lot of people would have been. Like we finished obviously 8 and 9, we missed the playoffs. We were ended up being third in the division. That's now twice in 3 years since Brady has left that we've missed the playoffs. It's also second time we've missed the playoffs and our second losing record. Obviously, the first year post Brady was the Cam Newton, where I think we are 7 and 9. Then obviously last year, Max rookie year, which was surprising, ended up being second in the division and lost in the wildcard round after going I think 10-7 last year, 10-6 last year. 10, I can't remember. Made the playoffs anyway. And then obviously this year came down to the very last game where if you've been watching the Patriots all season, you didn't really think they had that much of a chance of getting in when we either had to beat the Bills, who were just coming off the, thankfully, he's now healthy, Damar Hamlin situation where they're just driven. Even though in that game, I'm not going to go into that game because then that'd be too long a conversation, but like we would have been in that game if not for the ridiculous two Naeem Hines kickoff return touchdowns, which is not a normal thing for Patriots to be. We had a bad year when it came to best special teams anyway, bar Schooler, the usual Slater, who kind of turned up as they usually do, but Schooler's out for this game, which obviously is massive, clearly because Naeem Hines returned 2 touchdowns. But as a whole, it's been a very stressful year. I would say this has been the most stressful year since we lost Brady. Since we lost Brady, he's not dead. Brady's not dead. Brady's in Tampa Bay enjoying he's made the playoffs again, so I guess he's enjoying his life. But like the Cam Newton year was, you kind of knew that there wasn't too much going to happen, but you had a bit of hope with Josh McDaniels being there and the Cam Newton kind of. The passing was awful. The passing offense was horrendous, but at least he was unexpected. He's exciting enough in the run game, I guess I would say about the Cam Newton year. Then last year, obviously, Mac Jones exploded with his, he ended 22 touchdowns last season, got to the playoffs. Looked good last year, looked like he had a good decision making. He'll be mentioned at this, don't worry, at some stage. Then this year, obviously, regression with not having an offensive coordinator, which is what most of this is going to be about on the dislike side of it, is the lack of an offensive coordinator, because it started off the year where you didn't know, was it going to be a mix of Joe Judge and Matt Patricia and God knows who else. Ended up being Matt Patricia being the de facto play caller, which, as every news outlet, media outlet has said, was absolutely horrendous for us. But anyway, that's why I'm optimistic about next year to a degree. I'm optimistic until the off-season starts, and we're already started off decently enough. As of the recording of this, we had already pretty much locked up Gerard Mayo, who has been our linebacker coach, obviously a former player, who we would have gotten at least a defensive coordinator job somewhere else, if not a head coaching job, which I think the Eagles he had an interview with for a head coaching job. Strange was true anyway. He would have definitely gone somewhere else. Now they haven't given him a title yet, as far as I know, because it's the Patriots the last year, because of obviously they didn't make Patricia was the play caller. They didn't name him the offensive coordinator because of the fact that if we did, it was something that we had to pay him. While if we didn't name him that, the Lions ended up paying him for the whole year. I think something to do with that. So that's how that went. Obviously, I think Joe Judge was the same with the Giants, obviously being fired by the Giants, coming back. And I think if he had been named any specific bigger name title, he would have been us paying him rather than the Giants paying him. Something, again, kind of, you can't really call it a bridge year because no one progressed enough to say that it was worth the stress of what it was. But anyway, I'm going to start off with my 5 likes. The first like is, I had written down run game, then I realised it was more so just Ramondre Stevenson because of Damian Harris's injuries all year. Stevenson I'm going to be looking now at the notes because I have a notebook here, but Ramondre Stevenson ended up with 1,040 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was 13th in yards, in the league, 44 Swiss tackles, 5 yards per attempt, 420 yards receiving, which obviously the screen game was a lot, used a lot for the offense this year to get us out of holes, because obviously our wide receivers couldn't do anything with the cut plays that are being called. He had 69 receptions, 801 yards after contact, again on the run game. He was the offense, and there's a lot of games where it looked where Ramondre Stevenson last season, he showed a lot of promise mixing with Damien Harris last year. Coming in this year, Damien Harris being out with injury and stuff, now we don't know. I'd be surprised if Damien Harris comes back in free agency, because he's going to get some sort of money somewhere, and we don't like bringing guys back because we have to pay them. But Stevenson looked unbelievable this year. I had him before the year. I remember someone put out a tweet where it was like, project what Stevenson would do for the year, and I ended up having him at, I think, 700 to 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. Ended up because of, I think he would have hit that kind of mark if Harris had been healthy the whole year, because Harris is our power back. He's our train most of the time. But obviously his injury, he ended up going to 1,040 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think he's 6 total touchdowns in a year, which again, you would have thought more from a back like him. But then again, our red zone was just so horrendous. Our offensive line was so horrendous. You can't blame him for that. And then again, I wrote down it's kind of a slight negative to what the run game was this year. Because like I said, I started off the run game, then realised it was just Ramondre Stevenson. Even though Pierre Strong, I do him written down, he had 10 yards per carry. He had like 100 yards total on 10 carries and 7 missed forced tackles. He looked okay. Kevin Harris was okay as well. I think he had a fumble. And they all had a fumble. Usually when you fumble other than Ramondre Stevenson, you do end up getting taken out of a Patriots lineup. Then you have, what was it? Oh, we were 22nd in rush attempts per game, which was, we had 25 rush attempts per game, and we were 24th in the NFL in rushing yards per game at 106. Having that kind of tells you exactly why we struggled offensively when your best weapon wasn't being used majority of the time. Next guy I had, it is a player again, Josh Uche. His third year, and you wouldn't even think it's his third year, he ended up with 56 total pressures, made him top 15 in the NFL. He had 12 sacks, that was top 10. 41 quarterback hurries, that was top 10. Then he only really got but he got real pass rushing reps from week 14 to 18, where he had, I think he had 30 plus pass rush plays every time. He just looked so much faster than everybody this year. And it did look like he took a lot of moves from Judon. He's a lot more polished. Well, every other year was kind of, you know how fast he was, you know how strong he was. He didn't have a way to finish. And this year finally looked like, once he was given the reins, because obviously we didn't know if it was going to be him, was it going to be a mix of Dietrich Wise or Anthony Jennings even off the edge. It ended up being kind of him full time, especially from week 14 on, and it looked like him, Judon. Wise had looked good at the start of the year, kind of cooled off. Still finished with a decent, I think still a 4 or 5 sacks in the year with Uche's 12, and I can't remember what Judon was more than that. But having that was looking forward to next year, which is something we've been missing for a long time, is a legitimate pass rusher, because we kind of mixed in Jamie Collins and these kind of guys. But now we have Josh Uche on one side, Dietrich Wise is there, Anthony Jennings is okay when needed. Judon obviously, and Barrymore when he's healthy, he looked good. He was obviously out for a lot of the year. Came towards, I think the Bills game, he looked decent enough, if I remember correctly. So you have Barrymore, you have Judon, Wise, Jennings. We have probably our best pass rushing group for a long time. Probably since Dante Hightower is a real pass rusher, and you had Jamie Collins, Chandler Jones kind of way. So that's nice to have back. Next I had Marcus Jones, who I have a buddy who's a Patriots fan for a long time. I've had that kind of person to talk to when you live in Ireland about this kind of stuff. But Marcus Jones was probably the reason we watched every week nearly, because he was just so enjoyable. And when he got mixed in the offensive side of the ball, which is the catch-22 league, you shouldn't have to be bringing in your cornerback to be a playmaker on the offensive side of the ball as a receiver. But then the fact he was able to do it a bit, what did I even write down how much he got? 78 yards receiving a touchdown. Obviously that one he broke off earlier in a year. He finished with, is more so on his side of the ball, was because he, again, similar to Josh Uche, it seemed like the defense kind of decided we're going to stick to young guys. He only kind of week 14 to 18, he had 30 plus coverage plays, where he was only platooning in as kind of an extra corner before that. He has 640, and he's an all-pro. That's all-pro Marcus Jones, rookie. 643 kick return yards, 23 yards per return, 362 yards for punts, 12.5 yards per attempt. Obviously the touchdown, that had a pick 6, had a receiving touchdown. He allowed 365 yards on 24 receptions on 37 targets, allowed a touchdown, 2 picks and 4 pass breakups. his biggest thing was he looked really good against Devontae Adams that week. Now, that was a mess anyway, but still he did hold his own against Devontae Adams, where in the past we would have been able to have a true number one on whoever their number two was, like a Renfro or something, have a doubling Adams. We didn't have that kind of availability when it came to corners this year. It was a fairly thin cornerback group because with Mills being injured, Jack Jones, his situation, whatever that was, then Marcus Bryant was just awful all year long. But again, it's good going forward seeing him, knowing that we have that kind of playmaker going forward. He was my favourite guy that we got in the draft this season, him and kind of Taekwon a bit. Next, kind of keeping on the defensive side of the ball, my fourth was the defense overall was our saving grace every week. Like, they only allowed 20 points per game every week. They kept us, if they gave our offense a chance every week, even though we knew the offense couldn't do it. They were 11th in points allowed, and 20, like I said, 20 points per game. 8th in yards allowed, only 322. Why do I have a lisp? Second in takeaways per game at 1.8. Third in sacks. Like I said, the pass rushing group is the best we've had in a while. And then I had the kind of players' names that I had was Kyle Duggar looked like a more boom player than he was bust this year. Obviously, he's still not great in coverage, but still he had 3 touchdowns on a year. Dedrick Wise, like I said, he's made steps again. Judon, Jack Jones, when he was playing, was good. Still was not as good as I think like the likes of Pro Football Focus were rating him as earlier on. Josh Uche, Marcus Jones again, Juwan Bentley, who should get an extension, I think this year or next season. I doubt the franchise tag him, but he should get an extension because he was the staple in the middle, which him and Tavayu looked a lot better this year as well. Bentley should get his money. Bentley should be there, but having that kind of continuity, I guess, would be the word to use going forward. You need that in the middle, and Bentley has looked. This is his best year so far, and obviously his contract year, I think, which kind of makes sense. So having him there, having that again, what you want going forward is that it's having that staple in the middle. Next, I had Kendrick Bourne, Taekwon. While Kendrick Bourne was probably our most talented receiver this year, along with Jacoby, obviously that situation, whatever was gone, very early in the season, I remember Patricia, Lord Almighty, had issues with him over something. Maybe he's late for practice, I can't remember what it was. And then after that, it was kind of curtains for Bourne, even though when Bourne got the ball, whether he's even targeted, whether he actually got the ball, he looked like he breaks something off. He looked like the most dangerous receiver we had, even though like Jacoby looked good, probably his best season so far. I was hoping at least that he'd go kind of jump to a wide receiver one position. That hasn't happened. Devontae Parker had injuries all year, came on big in the Bills game, but overall, Taekwon again just was misused. But when he was used, you could see it. His athleticism is worth what they use on him and what he can be going forward, which I do like about him. Kendrick Bourne only had 47 targets in the year, 434 yards, 12.4 yards per catch, only the 1 touchdown. I wrote down playmaker when used, like I just said. Even when he was the only target, didn't make a catch, he still looked like the most dangerous guy there. Taekwon, 43 targets, 247 yards, 11 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns on the year, 1 rushing touchdown. And that was only in the only week that we kind of used him in running game. Now, Patricia's probably not smart enough to use a receiver in run game, if we're being honest. Not smart enough for a lot of things. But he only had 3 attempts in that game against the Browns. That was the last time we really properly used him in run game. And then he was somewhat more involved from week 13 on. But anyway, 3 drops, which was good on the year. But I liked what he shows going forward. I think he needs the offseason to polish because he doesn't have a lot of moves. Like I said, at Baylor, he was just a deep threat. He's pretty much just asked to do deep fades, and that's all he was asked to do. But they are my 5 positives. Like I said, on the year, I feel okay going forward. Don't love it. Still think there's a lot of stuff for you to do in the offseason, but I think I'll make a different video about that, about what I actually want us to do. There goes the dog, sticking me talking. Let's get to dislikes. I had number 1. I don't feel like going that negative straight away, so I might start at 5. No, 5's pretty bad. Let's start at 4. Let's start at 4. No clear wide receiver 1. Tight end sucked all year. Myers leaving. We have no idea if he's going to stay or not. If he's going to be resigned, he'd probably at like, look what Nelson Aguilar got. Look what Christian Kirk got. He could get a lot of money unless he wants to come back to us because we're not good. We don't pay wide receivers. Henry and Smith both struggled. That's obviously Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. I just don't think we know how to use Jonnu Smith. He also didn't look great when he was used. And then Hunter Henry's regression from his career year with Mac in the first year, which that's why going this year you had so much, I guess, hope for Mac in a sense, that because he had such a repertoire with Hunter Henry, you thought that someone for him to, if a play breaks down, he has him. No, Hunter Henry looked awful in pass blocking as well. Smith looked awful in pass blocking. Basically didn't have a tight end all year. Yeah, so that's one of them. Next three again, pretty bad one, which I myself and Levi is his name. I won't give out his the rest of his name. Tackles, offensive line. Our best offensive lineman is a right guard, who last season, not even this season, we asked to move along the line a lot, which is Michael Onwenu. Should have been an All Pro, wasn't. Him and Coach Strange looked better towards the end of the year. Our first overall pick that we traded down to get. It looked good towards the end of the year. Still wasn't great, but have some problems going forward. Then you had, let's start with Trent Brown. He allowed 8 sacks on the year, and he had 13 penalties. It was quite literally a penalty per game you were expecting. Holding, majority of the time, just what it was. 8 sacks allowed from Trent Brown, and I loved him. Last time he was here before now, he had a Super Bowl here. We probably should have left him in Vegas. He might have had a better time. I would have had a better time. Next, Isaiah Wynn, horrendous as well. 4 sacks on the year. Didn't show any progression at all. He was kind of in and out with injury stuff, just wasn't good. I would rather even play McDermott over him at right tackle. So we don't have right tackle and left tackle going forward, in my eyes. Because Justin, no. I don't know what more to say about Yannick Kajut. Like, no. And who else was there? Andrews, even David Andrews struggled a bit. He had 5 or 6 penalties on a year. That's his tied for his worst of his career. Not exactly what you see from your one staple on the line going forward. Our longest tenured. I think he's longer Trent Brown. Yeah. Next, Mac Jones' year. Not all to blame for Mac Jones. Finished with just under 3,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That's down from 23 touchdowns. Never mind, I was 22. He was 23rd in touchdowns for starting quarterbacks and 10th interceptions. He was sacked 34 times. He had 18 drop passes, which, like we mentioned earlier, not really a true number one anywhere along the offense. 145 pressures. He was 4th in pressure to sack percentage with 24. So obviously, when he felt pressure, he was majority of the time taking the sack, which again wasn't great. The notes, I have this written down here: bad decision making. Took sacks over some throwaways, which you kind of need. Like something Brady was always good at. Brady didn't take unnecessary sacks when he was there. I'm not comparing to Brady. Just that is who our quarterback was for 20 years. Bad foot setting, which something a lot of Patriots had said about him, was the fact of his foot, he wasn't setting his feet on throws. He wasn't in sync with precision at all. Overall, he regressed, but with his mechanics didn't look right. I, at one stage, actually assumed he was injured or something was wrong with him, because he just was not looking right when he was throwing the ball. Again, like was it the Raiders? It was the Raiders game at the end where why didn't you go for Hail Mary? Bill was asked in the presser. He said we couldn't throw it that far. That's not something you want to hear from your quarterback. And it's not a case of like with the Niners when they had Jimmy G as their starting quarterback, where you knew he didn't have a great arm, but you could kind of scheme around him. We couldn't do that, Patricia. So that's there. But Mac Jones as a whole, I do think he should get a chance next year. Like Billy Zappi looked okay for us, but you're not really going to start Zappi over Jones. You can't do that. Jones was your first overall pick. He looked good last year. You can't just bench him completely after one bad year out of 2, I know. But like usually quarterbacks progress year 3 to 4 kind of is kind of the main when you figure out what they are. So a Mac should be the starter next season, but he needs to get a tackle put around 2 tackles. He needs weapons kind of put in. He needs a better offensive coordinator. It's not 100% his fault. His attitude he does need to work on, because this whole BS of looking for calls from referees and complaining all the time, I get it, but you're the quarterback, you're the captain, you're supposed to be a leader. You need to just, you know what I mean? Next, again, it kind of ties into unnecessary drama. The quarterback drama between him, the kind of quarterback battle we had for a little bit with Zappi, because if fans were shouting in the stadiums for getting Zappi in the game, don't want that either. Kendrick Bourne's drama, Matt Patricia's drama, which we're now going to get into. It just seemed like a very un-Patriot season, where there's a lot of drama around the players, the coaches, which we're not used to, because like I said, McDaniel was fairly solid there. And it all kind of stems, in my eyes, from, I don't know, did Bill take a back seat? But like some of the stuff that's going on is not stuff, it wasn't Patriot-esque, not what we're used to. I'm watching the Patriots since probably 2004, and you don't get the feeling that you're watching New England Patriots anymore. And then my biggest dislike, again, is the offense plus Matt Patricia. We were 17 in points per game with 21.4. If you look earlier, the pitch, like I said, the defense allowed 20. So you're apparently only scoring teams, but outscoring teams by 1. 26th in yards per game with 314 yards a game, and 32nd in what was probably the most unwatchable thing about the team was the red zone. What's that? 42% in the red zone, like the worst team in the NFL in the red zone. We were unwatchable, too many screenplays, predictable, no feel for plays, when to pick the run versus the pass, no creativity using the weapons, and no connection between him and Mac whatsoever. You saw Mac complaining about what the plays were being used, that the running game shouldn't be used, even though, like I mentioned earlier, the best offensive player we had this year was Ramondre Stevenson, was probably Damien Harris the year before as well. Like, it doesn't make sense not using the run game, but then, like, Patricia he lost the locker room for what you could see from the field. Obviously, we don't know what's going on in the background other than reports that come out. Then there's more stuff. Was it? No, I never believe him. Chris Sims came out saying that Mac was actually asking for help or something like that behind the scenes, behind Patricia's back, which apparently Bill found out. Bill wasn't happy. None of us are happy. This wasn't a year, and I don't know what was going to fix. Well, I do know what's going to fix it. A new offensive coordinator. Our defense is good going forward. I think you need to figure out with Steve Belichick and Draw Mayo what you're doing here, because obviously Draw Mayo's coming back. He's not going to be back to being a linebacker coach. He's probably going to be an assistant defensive coordinator. I don't think he'll get it over Steve. But you need to figure that, like, that the defense is kind of set. You need a bit more. You definitely need to get some corners, probably attack corner in the draft. It's a deep enough cornerback draft. A lot of kind of Trayvon Diggs-esque players in there, in my opinion. But you need to figure out the offense coordinator situation, because it's awful. He didn't know what he was doing. Again, he hasn't had... You can blame him because obviously he got the job. He accepted the job. He put his name forward. He shouldn't have. He's never had that kind of job in his career. So that's not ideal. But you also need to get weapons around Mac. I think you need a true... Like, this whole... If we get DeAndre Hopkins, fantastic. I don't think we'll give Arizona what they want for him, as much as I want. But then, like, what you can't... DeAndre Hopkins isn't going to fix a Matt Patricia. Mac... He needs tackles as well. He needs stability, in my eyes. Stability and, I guess, trustworthiness. Is that the word? Trustworthiness? It's a lot. It's a lot that needs to be done that you're not used to with the Patriots going forward. But I'm optimistic just because the defense is there. But I'm optimistic because I'm an optimistic person in general. And I usually fall for the tricks that my team's going to be good every year. Got used to it for a long time. But the only thing I'm worried about is that we don't have we don't have a winning culture anymore. We don't have Tom Brady anymore. We don't give out big paychecks. We overpaid the last 2 years ago now, in the off-season for defensive players, and that didn't work out. So, like, there's a lot to be fixed, and I think we can, but it needs to be a busy off-season. We've already seen this kind of started where him and Belichick and Kraft apparently agree that things need to change offensively and probably more so everywhere, really. And that's kind of what we're waiting to see what they do, because I don't know what they're going to do. What it's going to look like, I don't know. But the offense needs to be completely different, because look at the Chiefs. Chiefs don't have a great defense, but their offense is just that good. Like, it's an offensive-driven league, and that's the way it is. So that's my 5 likes and dislikes for the season. It was a roller coaster of a season. I'm glad it's over. You always want your team to make playoffs. I think we're the 14th pick now in the draft. I imagine we don't stay there. I imagine we go back, because I don't believe Belichick's going to stay there. He usually always tries to go back when he actually does have a high pick. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm optimistic. I had an enjoyable season overall. Like, the defense was enjoyable to watch. The 4th and goals, like that, it was fun. And like I said, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimist. I guess an optimist. There you go. Going forward, but like, there needs to be changes. So we'll see how it goes. And yeah, that's all. Hopefully I'll be back about talking about the Patriots at like a revisit to what I want from us. I might do what we need, kind of short video or whatever, but we'll see. We'll revisit and see what we actually did in the off season. So thank you, and I'll see you again. Bye bye.